SLT Speed Up සවාරිය සමගින් සද්දන්ත වාසි රැල්ලක්. අලුත් බ්‍රෝඩ්බෑන්ඩ් සබඳතා සඳහා පළමු මාස දෙක පුරා data double. Speed up with SLT.
Making headlines first at 9. Toppling efforts. Masses throng Colombo in support of the joint opposition's protest rally. Jana Balaya Kilometer. Puff and puff. The United National Party is adamant that protests won't topple the government. Clipping wings, the Janata Vimukti Peramuna tables the draft bill of the 20th Amendment to the Constitution proposing the abolishment of executive presidency. Capital punishment, President Maithripala Sirisena deems misuse of state property deserving of the death penalty. In free fall, Sri Lankan rupee falls to an all-time low against the US dollar, reaching 163 rupees for the first time in history. Good evening, bringing you news from across Sri Lanka and around the world on Other Derana 24/7, first at 9. I'm Indivara Yamuatta. We begin tonight's broadcast with the much talked about September 5th rally. The joint opposition's mass protest rally themed People's Power to Colombo, or Jana Balaya Kilometer, is currently underway at the Lake House roundabout in Colombo. Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa and a majority of the joint opposition members participated in this protest rally today.
The joint opposition's mass protest rally themed Jana Balaya Kilometer, or People's Power to Colombo, kicked off today from several locations in Colombo. The protest was organised against the proposed constitution, selling off state resources, protecting those who are responsible for the central bank bond scam, political vengeance, targeting war heroes, imprisonment of Buddhist clergy and high taxes imposed on the public.
Tens of thousands of protesters converged at the Lake House Junction today. As you can see, many people are gathered here for the Satyagraha organised by the joint opposition. The joint opposition did not disclose any information in this regard. That left the police in a very tight position since they did not know information about the routes where they're heading to and where they're coming from. So the police yesterday sought an injunction order from 3 courts and the courts rejected all their requests.
As per the decision by party leaders representing the joint opposition this afternoon, the main protest centred around the Lake House roundabout in Colombo. Ahead of the protest today, security was tightened in and around the Parliament, Presidential Secretariat, President's House, Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Temple Trees, Special High Court and President's official residence along the Mahagamasekara Mawatha. Several rallies commenced from various locations in Colombo today at around 2 p.m. to converge at the Lake House roundabout. One rally commenced at the DP Sirisena ground in Maligawatta, following which the protesters made their way to the Lake House roundabout through Maradana, Technical Junction and Colombo Fort.
Nowhere in the world, a foreign minister or a government has accepted that their own forces have committed war crimes and then co-sponsored a resolution against their own country. On top of that, they are trying to divide this country into 9 independent states. Then what happened to all this commitment or the sacrifice made by these soldiers? This is a sign of public contempt towards the present rulers, and I'm sure that they will learn a lesson.
This government is the worst government we have ever seen. They are betraying our sovereignty, selling our airports and ports and everything. We call upon our people, please rise up and fight against this unjust government.
Meanwhile, another rally made its way from Gold Road and Southern Expressway to the Lake House roundabout via Lipton Roundabout, Union Place and Slave Island. The funeral director of this country, Mangala Samaravira, says that he will beat us up. We will be there at Union Place and we challenge him to beat us up if he can.
The economic growth rate, which was almost second in Asia, is now the lowest in whole of Asia. The cost of living has skyrocketed. Taxes have got doubled. People can't actually even walk freely on the roads because the crime rates have gone up. We have decided come to the roads and give the government a very strong message. The message is now enough is enough. Please go home, and to do that, please call for elections. But if you don't do that, we will come back again in a much bigger scale.
Meanwhile, another rally journeyed through Dali Road in Maradana, where the headquarters of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party is located. We didn't come to Colombo to just leave like that. We will stay here until the current government goes home. Another group of protesters gathered in main roads in Borale and Maradana. They later reached the Lake House roundabout via the DR Wijesekara Mawatha. Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa and former Defence Secretary Gotabaya Rajapaksa joined the rally at the Bodhi Tree near the Fort Railway Station. You can all see the numbers of people gathered here seeking a new government under the leadership of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa. He is the only one who can properly govern this country, uplift its economy, ensure security and establish a strong as well as a good government.
The government is trying to interrupt this and also try to stop people coming for this. There was an incident report in Halial today, and several incidents reported in several areas trying to interrupt the buses. And especially police is purposely trying to stop the buses by putting checkpoints and trying to check the buses. When the government is there and they are not concerned about the people, so it's natural for people to come into streets, and there is no democracy in parliament. Main purpose of this protest and march is to make sure that the government restore democracy by going for a national election, and we will not give up until we get a national election.
Severe traffic congestion was reported along all main roads in Colombo and suburban areas due to the protest today. All rallies and groups of protesters gathered at the Lake House roundabout at around 4 p.m. in the evening. In the meantime, it is revealed that the protesters will remain at the Lake House roundabout overnight, continuing their protests. The 5th of September is a historical day for Sri Lanka. Hundreds and thousands of people have arrived in Colombo and have taken over its power. The city has come to a halt. The only message given by the people of the country to the government is step down and go home. If you want this situation to continue for days, be in power by force. But you won't be able to be in power for long. Unarmed innocent people have gathered in Colombo to use their democratic power. They have given a lesson to the world that the power of the people is the strongest. People vow to be here until the government is toppled. In the meantime, the joint opposition supporters who gathered at Lake House roundabout commenced a satyagraha in the evening. Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa then addressed the gathering. This is a very successful rally. People from all walks of life are heard today. The government brings fraudulent acts to divide the country. They are stamping on the people by taxing them. I was able to hold the provincial council elections after 25 years. That's because we liberated the north. We were able to even liberate the east and hold elections, freeing them from the terrorism of Prabhakaran. Today, they are deliberately postponing elections. We're not allowed to speak in parliament and we have to speak here instead. We ended the war during our tenure and re-established the democracy and let people of this country breathe freely. And now anyone can go to the north and speak freely or even blame me freely, thanks to Mahinda Rajapaksa.
In the meantime, several ministers holding a media briefing at the Government Information Department said the joint opposition's effort ended in failure.
They plan to stage a massive protest, enough to topple the government. The crowd gathered in Colombo today was less than the number of people which comes for a May Day. Party members of rural areas are brought to Colombo, giving them money and alcohol. Today's protest had no aim. They say different things. Joint opposition shamefully failed today. However, now the team has been limited to 3,000 to 4,000 people. We had doubts that this would be successful because we know people have issues with the government. There are those who criticise the government. However, Mahinda Rajapaksa had to leave without speaking in anger.
The General Secretary of the United National Party, Minister Akila Viraj Karyavasam, is adamant that protest marches will have little effect on the government, saying such actions will not see it being toppled. Addressing a media briefing organised on the 72nd anniversary celebrations of the party set to be worked off tomorrow, Minister Karyavasam expressed confidence over the establishment of a UNP government following the presidential election.
Tomorrow marks the 72nd anniversary of the United National Party. As the slogan of this year's celebrations, we decided to use 72 years of service. I would like to inform that all necessary preparations are made to celebrate the anniversary under the patronage of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe at Sirikota. The flower bud is boasting about the results of the recent local authorities election, which was the most profitable election for them because they strengthened the rural base. The presidential election will be the most profitable one for us. When we win the presidential election, the UNP can launch a development program that will last for 10 years to come. In the meantime, the General Secretary of the United National Party observed the preparations of the 72nd anniversary celebrations that are to be held tomorrow.
In the meantime, the draft bill of the 20th Amendment to the Constitution, which proposes to abolish the executive presidency, was tabled in Parliament today. It was presented to the Parliament by JVP parliamentarian Vijitha Herath.
People of this country are waiting to abolish the executive presidency in order to establish democracy in the country. The 20th Amendment to the Constitution is tabled in Parliament to fulfill that need. The main intention is to abolish the executive presidency, which gives excessive powers to one person. We expect that Parliament and the people of this country will assist us in this endeavour. Under the Act to establish special high courts, how many special high courts are established so far? Will that special court be used to deliberate the case of the controversial central bank bond issuance? One special high court is established in the Western Province. Copies of the final report of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry are directed to the Attorney General and the Bribery and Corruption Commission to act according to the recommendations mentioned. Action against the accused will be taken according to existing legal provisions of the country. The Chief Justice will take a final decision on that. The entire bond scam is associated with Perpetual Treasuries Limited. The role of the central bank governor is a responsible one. Are you ready to direct the Chief Justice to take up this case in special high courts? Investigations are still underway. 11 billion rupees of Perpetual Treasuries money are frozen at the moment. This will not cover up the bond scam. Even the money of the Veerakatiya project was returned to the Urban Development Authority of Mathura. Former Minister Johnston was remanded recently, but he has returned the 5 million rupees. It shows that returning money will not fulfill justice. Former CBSL governor is one of your closest friends. Certain websites reported recently that you met with him in Singapore. He is the most crucial person in the investigations. I'd like to ask you whether you don't have a personal responsibility to bring him back to the country. Returning money will not reduce the gravity of the crime. Legal measures are being taken against Arjuna Mahendran. Since he is abroad, all possible measures are already taken. Let us know if we have refrained from taking any possible action. When he left the country, I did not have any connection with him.
President Maithripala Sirisena is of the view that misuse of state property warrants the implementation of capital punishment. Addressing an event held at the parliamentary complex today, the head of state said that although a range of offences are included under the death penalty, the punishment is not meted out.
When speaking about corruption, waste and fraud, there are a lot of defects in the legal system and regulations related to them which delay taking action against the accused. In countries like Japan and Singapore, cases are not heard for years like in Sri Lanka, and they're concluded within weeks. They impose the death penalty as well. In Sri Lanka, the death penalty is given for murder, treason, rape and narcotic offences, but none of them are executed. Therefore, although it's mentioned in the documents, those who commit offences continue to do so. Today, I make a request from all political parties in Parliament that death penalty be imposed on those who exploit and steal state property. If it is to be implemented during my tenure, I'm ready to sign off on the execution of one or two before I leave office. Most dare to commit crimes since there are no adequate punishments. The report on the Special Presidential Commission of Inquiry with 32 complaints was presented to Parliament. I have noted that further action against those accused based on the reports are slow. As a government, we have the responsibility of taking necessary measures soon. In the meantime, the sub-report of the Office of Missing Persons, established to probe cases on missing persons, was handed over to President Maithripala Sirisena earlier today. Chairman of the OMP, President's Council Salia Piris, presented the head of state with the report, which is compiled on information collected from investigations conducted over a period of 6 months.
Let's take a look at other local stories making news tonight across Sri Lanka.
The Supreme Court today determined that the contempt of court case filed against Deputy Minister Ranjan Ramanayake be taken up on the 10th of December and it be deliberated across 3 consecutive days. The case will be heard before a 5-member judge bench. 2 petitions were filed against Deputy Minister Ramanayake alleging that the Deputy Minister insulted the reputation of the judiciary and lawyers during a media briefing held on the 21st of August last year. Accordingly, the Attorney General presented a list of evidence consisting 14 persons and 8 items of evidence, which include 4 CDs and 4 news reports containing the Deputy Minister's statement. Officials of the Department of Wildlife are gearing up to launch an operation to rescue a wild elephant fallen into an irrigation well in the area of Neluagala of Handapanagala. 2 elephants had fallen into the well this morning. However, locals say one of the elephants had made its way out with the aid of the other. The rescue operation is set to be launched tonight.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
In your business news tonight, the Sri Lankan rupee fell to an all-time low today, with the selling rate of the currency against the US dollar reaching 163 rupees and 36 cents for the first time in the country's history. The central bank data shows that buying rate at 160 rupees and 16 cents. This is considered the first time in history that both selling and buying rates of the rupee surpassed 160 and 163 rupees respectively against the US dollar.
With the Sri Lankan rupee falling to an all-time low of 163 rupees and 36 cents against the US dollar, it also marked the 12th straight session of setting fresh record lows by the currency. The rupee has so far weakened 0.4% this month, following a 1.2% decline last month. It has dropped 5.7% this year. Today's drop in the rupee is attributed to the weaknesses in emerging market stocks and currencies, as well as importers' rising demand for greenback.
If you see, all the Asian currencies have been performing relatively poorly during the year, primarily driven by the strengthening of the dollar, as the fund flows are towards the US, resulting mainly from the Fed rate hikes, where the US normalizes the interest rates. The emerging and frontier markets have seen a significant sell-off in the capital markets this year, resulting from the Fed rate hike. Some of the other currencies has been worse off, with the Indian rupee falling 12.5% and the Pakistan rupee falling about 11.3% during 2018.
Analysts also say that the Sri Lankan rupee is hurt by the country's largest trading partner, India, seeing its currency decline this year. Indian rupee dropped to 71 rupees and 52 to 53 cents per US dollar yesterday, marking an all-time low for the country's economy. The Indian rupee has now become Asia's worst performing currency so far this year due to higher oil prices, turbulence in emerging markets and simmering global trade tensions.
The US economy is doing very well, so US dollar has strengthening against all the emerging market currency. We cannot isolate from that. So crude oil prices have scaling new high every day. It will have pressure on rupee because we import 80% of our energy needs in the form of crude oil from overseas.
Although fresh record lows are being noticed consecutively, State Minister of Finance Eran Wickramaratne told Reuters yesterday that the government will leave market forces to decide the level of its rupee and will not intervene in the foreign exchange market.
China's ambassador to Sri Lanka, Cheng Ziyon, is of the view that Sri Lanka should embrace trade liberalisation, as failing which would run the risk of the country becoming isolated. Addressing an event in Colombo to mark the 40th anniversary of Shanghai's reform and opening up, Ambassador Ziyon stressed that trade liberalisation and economic globalisation would build Sri Lanka as a gem on the Indian Ocean. He, however, warned that the country would become a lonely island on the vast Indian Ocean without having free trades. The ambassador added that no other country could better understand the importance of upholding the free trade system than Sri Lanka. Chinese ambassador also drew parallels between China and Sri Lanka, saying the island nation has acted as a regional trade center since ancient times, as it was located at the crossroad of the Indian Ocean, just like China. Havas Media India Private Limited, part of France's Havas Group, and US-based Iconic Media Institution have won a contract for digital advertising programs to promote Sri Lanka as a tourist destination. Havas Media is to promote Sri Lanka in the Indian market, and Iconic Media will handle promotions in the Chinese market. The Cabinet of Ministers has this week approved to award the contracts on a proposal by Minister of Tourism Development, John Amarathunga. And in international business news, Amazon.com yesterday joined Apple in the $1 trillion club, becoming the second member of the group after its stock price doubled in 15 months. If the online retailer's sharp price continues at its recent pace, it will be a matter of when, not if, Amazon's market valuation eclipses that of Apple, which reached $1 trillion on the 2nd of August. Apple took almost 38 years, or rather, as a public company to achieve the $1 trillion milestone, while Amazon got there in 21 years. Back at home, Colombo Shares ended slightly weaker, snapping a 5-session winning streak on foreign selling. However, the day's turnover was 365.5 million rupees, much lower than this year's daily average of 804.1 million rupees. The All Share Price Index ended 0.13% weaker at 6,120.29, slipping from its highest close since August 13th. Foreign investors in the meantime sold a net 46.9 million rupees of shares, extending the net outflow so far this year to 4.3 billion rupees worth of shares. We have Nisansala Kurumpantli for more details.
Bourse reversed the positive sentiment seen for the last 5 trading sessions, dragged down by Ceylon Tobacco and AIA Insurance. The all-share price index witnessed a volatile movement, reaching an intraday high of 6,137 and closed at 6,120, losing 8 points. A net foreign outflow was witnessed for the 7th consecutive day with high foreign participation. On the crossings board, 200,000 shares of HNB was traded at rupees 225 a share, and 200,000 shares of Union Assurance was traded at rupees 285 a share.
are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.
In your international news, British police today detailed the movements of two Russians charged with travelling from Moscow to southwest England to try to murder former Russian spy Sergei Skripal and a military-grade nerve agent. The men are thought to be officers from Russia's military intelligence service.
Two Russian nationals have been named as suspects in the attempted murder of former Russian spy Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia. The men, using names Alexander Petrov and Ruslan Boshirov, are thought to be officers from Russia's military intelligence service. Scotland Yard and the CPS say there is enough evidence to charge the men. 66-year-old Skripal and his 33-year-old daughter Yulia were poisoned with the nerve agent Novichok in March. Detective Sergeant Nick Bailey also fell ill after responding to the incident in Salisbury. Police are linking the attack to a separate poisoning on the 30th of June when Dawn Sturgis and Charlie Rowley became unwell at a house in Amesbury, about 8 miles from Salisbury. Sturgis died in hospital on the 9th of July and Rowley was discharged from hospital a week and a half later.
At least 10 people have been killed by Typhoon Gebbie, the worst storm to hit Japan in 25 years. Kansai International Airport, Western Japan's main international flight hub, located on an island in the Bay of Osaka, was crippled in the storm after a tanker crashed into the main bridge leading to it. The main terminal was also flooded after a storm surge coincided with a high tide, leaving airport staff struggling to keep water out with over 2,600 people stranded. Gebbie, whose name means swallow in Korean, was briefly a super typhoon and is the latest storm to hit Japan this summer following rains, landslides, floods and record-breaking heat that killed hundreds of people. In sports news, top seed defending champion Rafael Nadal survived a scare in his quarter-final bout yesterday in the US Open. The women's defending champion, meanwhile, could not replicate a similar performance and could not secure a semi-final berth.
Argentine Juan Martín del Potro ended John Isner's dreams of Grand Slam glory in his homeland with a 6-7, 6-3, 7-6, 6-2 quarter-final win at Flushing Meadows yesterday. Isner's typically strong serve did not let him down, throwing down 26 aces, but it wasn't enough to stop Del Potro storming into the final four. Meanwhile, defending champion Rafael Nadal failed to win a single game in the opening set of his US Open quarter-final against Dominic Thiem, but fought back to beat the Austrian Love 6, 6-4, 7-5, 6-7, 7-6 in a match that ended past 2 a.m. in New York. Up next for the top seed is a semi-final clash with big serving third seed Del Potro. In the women's draw, defending US Open champion Sloane Stephens was dumped out in the quarterfinals after losing 6-2, 6-3 to Latvian 19th seed Anastasia Sevestova in sweltering conditions yesterday. In another quarterfinal, Serena Williams fought back from a breakdown in the first set to beat Czech 8th seed Karolina Pliskova 6-4, 6-3 and reach the semi-finals. Next up for the American is a semi-final clash with Anastasia Sevestova.
And that's all from First at 9 for tonight. But before we go, as usual, we'd like to leave you with some visuals. And tonight, we'd like to give you a glimpse into Sri Lanka's long and continuing pottery industry, a legacy that dates back to over 1000 BC. These plain, functional wares have changed little over the years and are available in the market today, still highly prized by locals who believe that the older the clay cooking pot, the better the flavors. Enjoy these visuals. Good night.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.